The strange air of both Galactic Hall of Concord was a place where stars seemed to meet under one roof. 1,000 banners from different worlds hung from the high glass dome, each glowing softly in its own colors. Alien voices filled the air, some deep like rolling thunder, others high and sharp like glass breaking. At the far end of the hall, a small group of humans stood together. They looked out of place. No shimmering scales, no glowing eyes, no extra arms or wings, just soft skin, plain uniforms, and polite smiles. Ambassador Ilara Voss stood in front of them, calm and still. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, her eyes steady. She had been in stranger places before, but the way the aliens stared at her here felt different. She could hear the whispers. Is that a Deathworlder? They look so fragile. Deathworld? Huh. That's just a name to make themselves sound scary. Look at her. No claws, no armor. If her planet is so dangerous, how is she still alive? Ilara kept her face neutral, her hands folded in front of her. She had been warned about this ever since Earth joined the Galactic Council. There had been rumors. Some species thought humans were nothing more than lucky survivors from a wild planet. Others thought they were too small and weak to matter. A few feared them, but not enough to stay silent. The Valorian delegate, Zirith, was the loudest of all. His tall, silver-skinned body shimmered under the lights as he moved closer to Ilara. So these are the famous Deathworlders, he said with a smirk, his voice carrying across the hall. I expected more. Some aliens laughed. Others covered their mouths, pretending not to hear. Ilara bowed slightly. We are honored to be here, she said softly. Earth seeks friendship, trade, and peace. Zirith tilted his head as if the word was strange to him. Or is it fear? Do you come here because your world is too wild for you to handle? The laughter grew louder this time. Behind her, Captain Reyes, one of Earth's security officers, shifted his weight. His jaw tightened, but Ilara's subtle hand gesture told him to stay still. Another alien, a bulky guy with 4 arms, joined. And I've heard their oceans are full of beasts that swallow them whole. How do they even survive long enough to build ships? Ilara kept her eyes on the speaker, her tone steady. We adapt. We learn. That is how we survived. But Zirith wasn't done. He took a step closer until he was almost within arm's reach. Or perhaps you survived because bigger, stronger creatures allowed it. He leaned in slightly, his silver eyes glinting. Tell me, little Deathworlder, what would you do if I decided you didn't belong here? For a heartbeat. The hall went quiet. The challenge hung in the air like the smell of lightning before a storm. Ilara met his gaze. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. I would ask you to step back. And if I don't? Zirith asked, his smile widening. Ilara's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Then you would learn why we are called Deathworlders. The moment passed, and Zirith laughed loudly, breaking the tension. You have spirit. I like that. He turned away, waving his hand as if she were a child who had spoken out of turn. The other aliens returned to their conversations, but the energy in the hall had shifted. Some now looked at the humans with curiosity instead of mockery. Others glanced away, uneasy. Ela took a slow breath and kept her composure. She had not come here to fight, but she knew there would be a time when words would not be enough. From the corner of the hall, a young alien aide whispered to another. Do you think they're dangerous? The other shrugged. If they were, wouldn't we know by now? Ilara pretended not to hear, but inside, a quiet thought echoed in her mind. You will die. As the meeting continued, her gaze drifted upward to the banners swaying gently in the air currents. Somewhere among them, the Earth flag now hung, small, almost unnoticed, but still there. She promised herself that one day, they would know exactly what it meant. Far away, Captain Reyes leaned in just enough for her to hear him murmur, How long do we keep being polite, Ambassador? Her answer was barely a whisper. Until they give us no choice. What they don't know. Long after the laughter in the Galactic Hall had faded, the humans stayed where they were, quiet, still, and watchful. To most of the other species present, their calmness looked like shyness. To Ilara Voss, it was preparation. She had seen this before, the same way predators in the jungles of her home moved slow, almost lazy, before they struck. The aliens thought humans were harmless because they had never walked on a world like Earth. Earth was a death world, not because it was uninhabitable, but because everything alive there had learned how to kill. The storms that could tear roofs from homes without warning. The oceans where creatures the size of ships hunted in silence. The desserts that could boil a man by day and freeze him by night. Even the plants fought for survival with thorns, poisons, and roots that could choke anything nearby. Alara remembered the first lesson in Earth's diplomatic academy. If you can live here, you can live anywhere, and if you can survive us, you can survive anything. In her mind, she drifted back to a memory. Herself at 16, hiking alone in the green valleys of New Zealand. The sky had been calm when she left, but on Earth, skies lied. By the time she was halfway across the ridge, black clouds rolled in like a tide. The wind howled, and sheets of rain turned the path to mud. Somewhere above, rocks shifted, and the sound of falling stones echoed in the air. She made it home soaked, cold, and shaking, but alive. It was the same for every child on Earth. Survival wasn't a lesson. It was life. Back in the present, a small group of alien delegates approached her. They were from the Cavalry Union, a gentle, bird-like species known for diplomacy. One of them, with feathers like silver threads, spoke softly. Ambassador Voss, forgive the others. They don't understand your people. Alara smiled politely. Understanding is earned. Another cavalry tilted its head. But is it true that your home tries to kill you? She glanced at Captain Reyes, who gave her a small nod. He knew when she was about to make a point. It's not trying to kill us, she said. It's just alive, all of it. Every part of it fights to keep existing. And if you can't match that fight, you don't last long. The cavalry shifted. Uncomfortably, they came from a world where nothing had hunted them for thousands of years. Their idea of danger was stepping into cold water. Across the hall, Zereth, the Valorian, was still entertaining other species with mocking tales about humans. He mimicked a human stumbling in a forest, screamed dramatically, then fell to the floor pretending to be dead. The crowd laughed. Reyes muttered under his breath. I could shut him up in 10 seconds. 5, Alara corrected softly, but she didn't move toward Zereth. Not yet. Instead, she turned to the large display screens on the walls. The Galactic Council kept archives of every world, videos of landscapes, wildlife, and cities. Earth's file was short and incomplete. Most of it was restricted after the initial assessment labeled the planet Category 5, Deathworld. The footage showed green forests, blue oceans, and tall mountains. It did not show the crocodile that could drag a full-grown bison underwater. It did not show the firestorms that moved faster than a running animal. It did not show the parasite that could turn a human blind in days. Alara thought about showing them the truth. But truth, she knew, had to be timed. She moved quietly to the human delegations table. The youngest among them, a communications officer named Daniel Holt, leaned in. They don't believe anything we say, he whispered. They will, Alara said, when they see it for themselves. From the far corner of the hall, an alert tone rang out. A council guard hurried in, speaking quickly to the chief security officer. A hush fell over part of the room. Reyes caught Alara's eye. Trouble? She scanned the movement in the crowd. No panic yet, but the guards were tense. Something had happened in the lower docking bays. She didn't know it yet, but this small incident would be the first step toward showing the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. And when that moment came, she would not be polite. The breaking point docking bay incident was quickly resolved, at least on paper. An alien cargo crew from the Xi Empire had been unloading a shipment of crystal fuel when one of their anti-gravity lifts malfunctioned. 3 massive crates, each weighing more than a small ground vehicle, began to tilt dangerously. By the time the council guards reached the scene, the crates were upright again, and the Xi crew was standing in stunned silence. They claimed a small human woman had caught the lift before it toppled. None of them could agree on how she did it. The math didn't make sense. Alara said nothing about the event when she returned to the hall, but whispers began to move like ripples in a pond. Some aliens scoffed. Exaggeration, they said. Others weren't so sure. The council meeting resumed. The agenda was supposed to cover trade tariffs between the Aerolon clusters and the Cavalry Union, but the atmosphere had shifted. Too many eyes kept drifting toward the humans. Zereth, smelling an opportunity to humiliate them further, stood up. During an open-floor discussion, he walked slowly into the center of the chamber, his silver robes trailing behind him, and addressed the assembly. Honored council members, he began, his voice rich with false charm. I wish to speak about the new Deathworlder delegation. They have asked for equal trade rights, military cooperation, and a place at our most important table. He paused, letting the words sink in. Then he smiled coldly. I have one question. Why? Murmurs filled the air. Xerath lifted his hand for silence. These humans come from a savage world. They claim they are strong because they survive in danger. But tell me, if danger makes you great, does that mean the prey of the galaxy are our true leaders? Laughter broke out among his allies. Alara remained seated, hands folded. She could feel Reyes tense beside her. Xerath continued, pacing like a predator in front of its meal. Strength is not the same as civilization. Violence is not the same as wisdom. And I say this, a Deathworlder's place is not here, among thinkers and builders, but in the wild, where they belong. He turned directly toward Alara now, his voice dripping with insult. Or perhaps you'd like to prove me wrong, little human. Alara stood slowly, her movements precise. I did not come here for games, Delegate Xerath. No. His smile widened. Then perhaps I should show everyone how fragile you truly are. The alien stepped closer. Ignoring the warning shift of the human security detail, he reached out as if to push her back into her seat. His fingers never made it. Alara's hand shot up, catching his wrist in a grip so fast and so sudden that half the room gasped. There was a sharp crack, not enough to break bone, but enough to make Xerath's knees bend from the shock of pain. She leaned forward, her voice calm and even. You mistake restraint for weakness. Delegate, that is dangerous. A tense silence fell over the chamber. The laughter was gone now. Even the council guards didn't move, unsure if they were watching an assault or a lesson. Alara released him, and he pulled back, rubbing his wrist with a snarl. But before anyone could breathe easy, another voice cut in. It was Commander, Vector of the Xi Empire, the same species whose cargo crew had seen the docking bay incident. A massive figure with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. Vector stepped forward. If this human claims strength, he boomed, let her prove it in a challenge. Council rules allow for formal testing of new delegations. A ripple of excitement moved through the crowd. Some nodded eagerly, others looked uneasy. Alara glanced toward Reyes, who leaned close and whispered, They're trying to corner you. If you refuse, they'll call us cowards. And if I accept, she asked quietly, then you have to win. He said simply. Xerath seized on the idea instantly. Yes, a duel. Here, now, you may choose the terms, hand to hand, if you like, no weapons. So we can see just how dangerous a Deathworlder truly is. Alara met his gaze. There was no anger in her face, only a stillness that made some in the crowd shift. Uncomfortably, very well, she said, hand to hand. But remember, Delegate, you asked for this. The murmur in the hall rose to a roar. Guards cleared a wide space in the center, and the floor panel shifted to form a smooth combat circle. Delegates crowded to the edges. There, eyes bright with curiosity and anticipation, Alara stepped forward, removing her diplomatic jacket and handed it to Reyes. Her stance was relaxed, almost casual, but in her eyes, there was no more patience. For the first time since she arrived, she wasn't here to be polite. The first demonstration combat circle in the center of the Galactic Hall shimmered. Under the bright lights, delegates pressed, close to the edge, their voices a mix of excitement, disbelief, and nervous laughter. The council guards stood between the opponents, ready to enforce the duel's rules. No weapons, no killing. Everything else was allowed. Alara Voss stepped into the ring first. She moved without rush, her bare hands loose at her sides, every step balanced. Across from her, Xerath entered like a man already celebrating victory. His silver robe had been removed, revealing the lean but corded muscle of his Valorian frame. His species were built for speed and precision, their reflexes far faster than most humanoids. He grinned at the crowd, spreading his arms, witnessed the truth of the Deathworlders, fragile, slow, and overrated. A low rumble of agreement moved through the alien spectators. The guards signaled for the duel to begin. Xerath lunged first, his hand darting toward Alara's throat with lightning speed. But before his fingers could touch her skin, she stepped to the side, barely moving more than a few inches, and his strike cut through empty air. Gasps rose from the crowd. He turned sharply, aiming a sweeping kick at her legs. Alara didn't block it. She let it pass within a hair's width, pivoting her body so smoothly it looked like she had known the kick was coming before he did. Xerath snarled, frustrated. He pressed forward again, a flurry of strikes meant to overwhelm her. Alara moved with calm precision, slipping between each blow like water flowing around stone. Not a single strike landed. Is this your strength? Zereth taunted, his voice tight with effort. Alara didn't answer. Her silence only made him more reckless. He charged, aiming to slam his shoulder into her chest. That was when she moved. Her right hand shot out, catching his forearm in a grip so firm it made him stagger. In the same motion, she twisted his wrist upward and stepped into his space, sending his balance forward. With a small shift of her hip, she guided him, not with brute force, but with perfect control, straight to the floor. Zereth hit the combat mat hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. The crowd went dead silent. Alara didn't let go. She knelt beside him, her grip like iron on his wrist. If I tightened my hold by the fingers, she said quietly, so only he could hear, your bones would shatter. If I pulled just an inch further, your shoulder would dislocate. This is mercy. Her words were not cruel. They were a fact, and that made them more terrifying. She released him and stood, stepping back with the same calm expression she had entered with. Zereth rose, slowly, rubbing his wrist. The fury in his eyes was matched only by the disbelief in the crowd. From the edge of the circle, Commander Vector spoke up, his deep voice carrying across the hall. One duel proves little. I say the humans face a true challenge against our finest guards. Murmurs swept through the spectators. The Xi Empire's guards were known as some of the strongest in the council. Their four-armed bodies built for both brute force and precision combat. Alara's gaze flicked toward Captain Reyes. He simply smiled. Show them, he murmured. Three Xi guards stepped into the circle. They towered over Alara, each one as wide as two men, their skin like stone armor. The duel began. The first guard swung the upper arms in a double strike toward her head, while the lower arms reached to grab her waist. Alara ducked under the high blows, twisted her torso, and slipped out of the lower grip with a move so quick it looked impossible. Before the guard could recover, she struck his knee with a sharp, focus kick. The impact made him stumble back with a grunt. The second guard came at her from behind, arms wide to grab her in a crushing hold. Without looking, Alara stepped back, hooked her foot behind his ankle, and yanked. He toppled forward, hitting the mat with a heavy thud. The third guard hesitated, eyes narrowing. He had seen enough to know this human was no ordinary fighter. But hesitation was fatal in the ring. Alara moved in, one step, a pivot, a sharp palm strike to his chest, and the guard staggered backward. When knocked from him, 30 seconds later, all three guards were on the floor, groaning but alive. Alara stood in the center, breathing steady, her hair slightly loose from the motion, but her eyes still calm. She turned to the council. We are here for peace, but peace is not the same as weakness. Do not mistake one for the other. The silence in the hall was heavier than any applause. It was the silence of realization that they had been mocking a predator they didn't understand. The Deathworlder mindset. Three Xi guards were still on the mat, groaning and rubbing their bruises, when Alara stepped out of the combat circle. She did not walk fast, nor did she smile in victory. Her calmness was sharper than a blade, and the delegates knew it. She stopped in the center of the hall, turning slowly to face every corner of the council chamber. Her voice, when she spoke, was not loud, but it carried. You think strength is about muscle, she said, about size, about claws, fangs, armor. But for humans, strength is about one thing, surviving when everything is against you. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably, others leaned forward, curious despite themselves. Alara continued, my home is a death world. That means the air can burn your lungs one day and freeze them the next. The oceans are beautiful, but they hide hunters that can kill you before you even know they're near. The forests give us food and shelter, and creatures that can take both from us if we make one mistake. She paused, her eyes scanning the alien faces before her on Earth. Children learn early that nothing is promised. We don't survive because we are the strongest or fastest. We survive because we adapt. We plan, we fight when we must, and we never stop moving forward. A memory rose in her mind, clear as the day it happened. She spoke it aloud. When I was 10, a storm destroyed my family's home. We lost the roof, the walls, everything we had. That night, my father wrapped me in his coat and said, we start again at sunrise. We didn't wait for rescue. We rebuilt. We always rebuild. Another memory followed, sharper, colder. When I was 19, a predator the size of a hover car chased my expedition team through the jungle. It was faster than us, stronger than us. We survived because we worked together, because one of us distracted it while the others escaped. That man nearly died, but he lived because we dragged him out and refused to leave him behind. She looked toward the Valorian delegate, Zereth, and her tone hardened. That is what you don't understand about Deathworlders. We are not dangerous because we fight well. We are dangerous because we fight for each other. The hall was utterly silent now. Commander Vector's deep voice broke it. So, you are saying your world made you this way? Alara nodded. Yes, and that's the point. You live in safe worlds where nothing challenges you. On Earth, every day is a challenge. If you stop adapting, you die. That is why we survive here, in space, where others fail. A cavalry delegate, feathers trembling, asked softly, do you ever fear it? Your own world. Alara's answer was calm and certain. Fear keeps you alive. On Earth, fear is not our enemy, it's our teacher. Ray stepped forward then, his voice carrying the same quiet confidence. Council members, he said, you've seen a small part of what we can do. That was Alara holding back. If she had fought with the intent to kill, this floor would be empty. And she's not the most dangerous human here. The statement sent a ripple of unease through the room. Alara took a step closer to the assembly. We didn't come here to conquer, she said. We came here to work together. But if you mock us, if you threaten us, you will see the other side of humanity. And that is not something you want. For a long moment, no one spoke. It was not fear alone that silenced them. It was the realization that the polite, smiling humans they had mocked were survivors from a world that forged warriors in every generation. And somewhere in that silence, respect began to grow. The final Strath Hall remained still after Alara's speech, but the silence didn't last. It broke with the sound of slow, deliberate clapping. XERADH. The Valorian delegate rose from his seat, each clap echoing in the chamber like a taunt. Well spoken, he said with a thin smile. Truly inspiring. But words are not proof. He stepped forward, his silver eyes flashing. You've shown us you can throw around a few guards. But that was theater. Controlled. Safe. I wonder. His voice dropped low. Dangerous. What happens when things are not safe? Alara's gaze stayed on him, calm but unblinking. Is this still about respect? She asked softly. Or is it about your pride, my pride? Zera's smirk deepened. It is about truth. I say you are nothing without preparation, without control. I challenge you, Deathworlder, to a real duel, not a sparring match, combat, until one of us yields, or cannot continue. Gasps rippled through the delegates. A duel under those terms could end badly, perhaps fatally. The council chair, an ancient being of the Serati species, shifted uneasily. Delegate Zereth, this is highly irregular. It is within my right. Zereth snapped. Council law allows for it when a delegation's honor is in question. The chair turned. To Alara, you may refuse. No one will think less of you. But that was the trap. Refusal would be spun as cowardice, not just for her, but for all humans. Zereth knew it. Alara's voice was even, but the steel beneath it was clear. I accept. The combat circle reformed in the center of the hall, this time wider, its boundary lights burning a deep crimson. The rules for this kind of duel were simple. No weapons, but no limits. Zereth removed his ceremonial robe and rolled his shoulders, revealing the full, sleek muscle of a warrior bred for precision strikes. Valorians were apex hunters on their homeworld. Their speed legendary, their accuracy deadly. Against most species, he would be terrifying. Alara simply tied back her hair, stepped barefoot into the circle, and stood with her hands loose at her sides. The signal was given. Zereth moved like lightning, closing the distance with a sudden burst of speed. His first strike, a spear hand aimed at Alara's throat, came fast enough to blur. Alara turned her head just enough for it to miss, her expression unchanged. A second blow came immediately, an elbow toward her jaw. She ducked, swept his leading foot, and he stumbled, but caught himself with feline grace. The crowd's voices rose, some cheering for Zereth, others holding their breath. He circled her, waiting for a mistake. Valorians were patient hunters. They wore their prey down before the kill, but Alara didn't chase him. She didn't rush. She waited. When Zereth lunged again, she stepped into him instead of away, catching his forearm and twisting it sharply. A flash of pain crossed his face as she drove her palm into his chest, sending him back to steps. He snarled, his pride cracking. No more precision, now he attacked with pure fury, a whirlwind of kicks and strikes. Alara blocked two, slipped past another, and then, with a sudden, brutal economy of movement, she ended it. Her right hand caught his wrist, her left gripped his shoulder, and with one sharp twist and downward shift, Xerath's body hit the mat with a heavy thud. Before he could rise, she pressed her knee into his chest, her hand gripping his throat just enough for him to feel the pressure. "You wanted to know what happens when it is not safe," she said, her voice quiet but carrying across the room. The council guards tensed, unsure if they needed to intervene. But after a heartbeat, Alara released him and stood. Xerath rolled to his side, coughing, clutching his throat. He didn't speak. The look in his eyes was no longer mocking. It was something closer to fear. Alara addressed the council without looking back at him. "Humans prefer diplomacy. But if you force us into survival mode, there will be nothing left to debate." No one in the chamber laughed this time. No longer Politeness crimson lights of the combat circle faded, leaving only the steady hum of the council chamber. Xerath was still on one knee, head bowed, clutching his throat. The once proud Valorian warrior couldn't seem to meet Alara's eyes. No one spoke. The crowd of alien delegates, usually a storm of murmurs and chatter, had gone utterly silent. Alara stood at the center, her breathing calm, posture steady. She did not look like someone who had just fought for her honor. She looked like someone who had simply finished a task. She turned slowly, meeting the gaze of each delegation in the chamber. "When Earth joined this council," she began, her voice even and clear, "we came with open hands. We offered knowledge, trade, and cooperation. We asked for nothing more than respect." Her gaze moved deliberately toward the Valorian seats. "Instead, we were mocked, laughed at, measured by your standards of strength, standards shaped in safe worlds where danger is rare and survival is certain." She stepped forward, her boots echoing faintly on the polished floor. "For Deathworlders, survival is never certain. Every day is earned. We do not live because the universe is kind. We live because we refuse to die." A delegate from the Cavalry Union shifted uneasily. "Ambassador Voss, what are you saying?" Alara's eyes hardened. "I'm saying that the days of polite ignorance are over." A ripple went through the hall. She continued, her tone like cold steel. "We are willing to share. We are willing to protect our allies. But mock us again, threaten us again, and you will meet the part of humanity you do not want to see." Captain Reyes stepped up beside her, his voice carrying just as firmly. "Understand this. What you saw here today was Alara holding back. She fought with control, with mercy. If she hadn't..." He let the sentence trail off, letting the weight of it settle. Several delegates looked away, suddenly unwilling to imagine what without mercy might mean. Alara tapped the control on her wrist device, and the chamber's massive holographic display came to life. The alien delegates gasped as images of Earth filled the air, not the filtered, tourist-friendly scenes the archives had shown before, but raw, unfiltered reality, towering storms, swallowing cities in black clouds, waves taller than buildings crashing into shorelines, predators with eyes like burning gold, moving silently through dense forests, a volcano erupting in a sky-lit red as fire rained down on a village, humans, battered and bloodied, still standing in the wreckage, helping each other, rebuilding, refusing to give up. "This," Alara said, her voice steady, "is our home. This is what made us. If you think a few insults or a show of force will break us, remember that we survived this. For thousands of years before we ever saw your stars, the images faded, leaving only the sound of the council's air circulators and the pounding of hearts in the chamber." The Serati council chair finally spoke, its deep, resonant voice breaking the silence. "Ambassador Voss, Earth will be recognized as a full equal member of this council." Effective immediately, a murmur of approval moved through the hall. Some delegates nodded with respect, others simply sat in stunned quiet. Their opinions forever changed. As Alara turned to leave, she passed Xerath. He kept his head lowered, but she paused beside him. "Delegate," she said quietly enough for only him to hear, "politeness is a gift. You've seen what happens when we take it back," without waiting for a reply. She walked on. Outside the chamber, the human delegation moved together down the long corridor. Reyes glanced at her, a rare grin crossing his face. "They'll think twice before crossing us again." Alara didn't smile. "They'll think twice, Yes, but more importantly, they'll finally listen. Far above them, through the council, Hall's towering windows, the flags of every member world swayed in the artificial breeze, and among them, now treated as an equal, the flag of Earth rippled in the light of alien suns.